Let's continue the conversation around this planned national shutdown. Let's get reaction now from the organization Undoing Tax Abuse, who say they are against what they've called a forced shutdown by the economic freedom fighters. OUTA's head of legal is Advocate Stefanie Fick, and she joins us now. Advocate, thank you very much for your time. Let's start with why you, along with other organizations, my understanding is that there's a group of you and you stand against this planned national shutdown. What are the reasons?
Well, I think firstly, we really believe that everyone has got a right to petition, to go out there and make their voices heard. I think our history has shown that, sometimes it is necessary for civil society to make their voices heard. What we are against is that people, that there's this rhetoric that people will be, stopped from going to work. And I do think that there's a subliminal message of there's going to be violence and people are going to, damage property. And that is not, should not be the South African way. Yeah. We are in an economic crisis. Keeping businesses from opening, keeping people from going to work is definitely not going to address the issues and will definitely not, will not be the solution to the problems that we are currently struggling with in South Africa. We're supposed to stand together in order to create jobs, to create a better economic environment so that we can uplift the social divide that is still there and, stand together to eradicate corruption.
Yeah. Advocate Fick, how credible are these threats of violence? And I'm asking you to juxtapose it with how else should South Africans voice their concerns, for example, around the issue of electricity. I was talking to someone, of course, we didn't speak on air about it, but she was telling me just before we went on air that in Centurion, I think the Centurion and Tshwane area, they've not had power for 2 days and there is no communication as to why or estimated time of restoring electricity. That gets South Africans worked up. How else do they voice their concerns if not going on the streets?
I think let's start with whatever is going to happen on Monday. I do think we give too much airtime to, the fact that people want to create discourse. This negative discourse, let me rather put it this way. There's going to be a handful of people that will most probably try and the criminal element that's going to try and disrupt everything. But I think in general, yes, South Africans are up to here with, all the problems. Electricity, we complain about load shedding. There are people and communities out there that do not have electricity at all. They do not have clean water. The complaints can go on and on and on. I firmly believe, and as OUTA we firmly believe, I think it really is time for communities to get together and start making their voices heard. In other words, as a community, look at ways of improving your refuse removal and then holding the municipalities to account and holding provincial and national government to account. A lot of the problems, South Africans are experiencing is because of corruption, maladministration. And it is high time that the political parties out there show us that, it's not just talk about corruption. It is, doing something about it. But I think the question is, how should people voice their frustration? Petitions and voicing your frustration, I think, is fundamental to our democracy and our constitutional rights. It's how you do it that we need to look after by, voicing your concern and in the same process cause economic harm to certain parts of, South Africa. That just doesn't make sense to me at all. And I think the energy is needed in order to say, we're going to take charge without becoming violent. I don't think violence is the way. I think the conversation we need to have is, we are still expected to pay our electricity bill, to pay our rates and taxes, but what are we getting?
Yeah.
And what's going to happen if municipalities can no longer, make use of, the rates and the taxes? Maybe it's time that we take over some of the water treatment spots and claiming that money back. Putting our energy in thinking about ways of making life better for us if the politicians are not going to do it.
Let's conclude the conversation very briefly on this question of how you voice your concerns without using violence. And I'm going to respond. I don't speak for the EFF, but I was listening to their leader. They're saying that they once held a protest marching to the JSE, and that protest, yes, it was large, but peaceful. And he juxtaposes that with a march of the Democratic Alliance to the ANC's headquarters. That was violent. And so there are these contradictions. Add to that what is going to happen today. The main concern for people is that this protest will disrupt business operations. They're saying that, look at the ANC. They're marching in Tshwane today. Who's to say that businesses, particularly small businesses, are not going to be disrupted? And yet here is the ANC, but through government officials, saying we're going to clamp down on your march on Monday.
You know what? Can I just say, that's the type of talk. It's politicians and political parties. I think literally playing a political game. We must remember there's an election in 2024. And who is drawing the shortest string? It's South Africans and, just normal, ordinary people that want to go to work on Monday to earn a salary in order to provide for their families. So, you know what? I think, personally, the ruling party and members of government must make sure that the police are properly resourced so that the police can do their job, because that is their job, is to look after the safety. And I think that at this point in time, if it wasn't for South African and communities coming together and taking hands with, the handful of policemen that is out there in order to do their job, that, I think more South Africans would have been scared for money. But I think there's communities that is ready, that, we will look after our businesses, we will look after our properties, because the police is just, torn apart. It's like capture and corruption, that they won't be able to do it. So as the ruling party, make sure that the SOEs and the departments, NPA, police are there, that they are well resourced so that they can combat corruption and do whatever they do. And for the political party like the EFF, yes, a peaceful march, voicing your concerns is part of our history, is part of our constitution, is part of our democracy. But advocating for any type of violence, advocating for we're going to make sure that people do not go to work, I think that is creating hysteria, that is unnecessary, and that is amplified by people that is, always taking the negative and making a big thing about it. You know what I would like to believe and throw out there in the universe? That if there is a march on Monday, that it is going to be peaceful, because they will know that communities will not allow people to disrupt their lives, because in order for us to build a better South Africa, we need to stand together and not create disparity and create divide, so that we can create a better future for our children.
Advocate Stefanie Fick is the head of legal affairs at the organization Undoing Tax Abuse. Thank you very much for your time.